The Verdict, a Sidebar production, hosted by Kent Myers and Mick Cornett. As a part of its traditional and continuing commitment to public and community service, Crow and Dunleavy sponsors The Verdict. Also sponsored by Delta Dental, Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, and C.H. Guernsey and Company. Each week on The Verdict, we present an objective discussion of contemporary and legal issues, topical issues that will affect Oklahomans in their daily lives. The Verdict, a Sidebar production.
And welcome to The Verdict. Good to see you. I'm Mick Cornett, and I'm joined, as always, by one of Oklahoma's top legal experts, Kent Myers. And Kent, we introduced a topic last week that we're going to continue today, and I'm so glad because I don't think we got far enough along on this subject that we intended to.
Well, we really didn't, and we are going to continue with the study of adolescents, troubled kids, kids at risk. Last week we talked about what might cause kids to go outside the lines on behavior. And this week we have invited our two guests back, and we're going to be talking about what does the school system, what does the criminal justice system do with these children that have gone over the line on acceptable behavior, and just how effective is the discipline, punishment, rehabilitation that these kids might have to endure to come back and be productive members of society, or evolve into more serious criminal behavior later.
No shortage of opinions from people on how to correct the problems of youth or identifying it, but to have the experts on is really a special treat. I think everyone has an opinion, but it's interesting to hear what they say.
Yeah, we hope to bring to our viewers some informed opinions, which does not come from you and me.
We're going to learn more about working with adolescents, some tough answers and some tough questions. You're watching The Verdict with Mick Cornett and Kent Myers.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
The Verdict is pleased to have as a sponsor C.H. Guernsey and Company, providing architectural and engineering services to clients throughout the U.S. and around the world.
And Blankenship has stopped at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play. Leading it 4th and 7 on the Tiger 46-yard line. 38 seconds on the clock. The Tigers have no choice but to go for it. Wiggins in to do the kicking. Here's the snap. And the kick is away.
All children deserve a life of hope and love. But sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all of the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. Oklahoma Lawyers for Children has over 350 of the best attorneys and volunteers in Oklahoma County who donate their time and services to represent children. For more information, call 405-23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
St. Gregory's University has been changing the lives of people like me for 125 years. Affordable private Catholic education, balanced with dedication to community and service, makes St. Gregory special. We're extremely proud of our students' outstanding academic achievements and our nationally ranked athletic teams. It's when you help a student build a future of balance, integrity, and service that you change a life forever. St. Gregory's, a community for life.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, who's going to introduce our guests.
We are very pleased to have back Rob and Lesia Doan. I want to introduce Lesia Doan first across the table. Lesia is a licensed behavioral practitioner. She has her master's in community counseling. She is working currently in the Crooked Oak School District in a counseling setting. She has vast experience in this area and other areas such as Cleveland County and Oklahoma City. And she is a recognized expert on dealing with young people and the problems that adolescents face. Lisa, welcome back.
Thank you.
On my right is Rob Doan. Rob is a Ph.D. Psychologist at the University of Central Oklahoma. As a professor there, is a recognized expert also in dealing with the problems of adolescents. Rob is not only a distinguished academic, but an outstanding practitioner in the counseling area, and so he does what all of us try to do, and that, or hope to do, and that is both teach and do. And as such, the reputation on Dr. Doan is that he is exceptionally effective at both. Rob, welcome back.
Thank you for that. Hope I can live up to those kind of words.
Well, your record indicates you can. Lisa, let me start with you and ask you about the child that's already violated the rules in some way significant enough to get school attention. What are the methods that schools use to try to stop the behavior, change the behavior, protect other students?
Of course, every school district has their own policies and the ways that, the way they set up things. Primarily, you go by what the policy is that the school has stated, and it could be, if it's the first offense, depending on, what the offense is, a lot of times we'll do a behavioral contract, and that'll include the student, the administrator, perhaps a teacher, a parent being present, so that it's a team decision on what the behavioral contract would be. And
it would say, don't do this again. I agree,
right.
I will not do this again, or something?
Or a percentage, depending on the student, no disrespect to any teachers, or less of whatever,
and if
no
you
fighting.
Do, there's penalties
right.
that are written down, so it's clearly stated.
Clearly stated. Okay. And if one's broken, then the next step would be, expelled, maybe sent to an alternative setting. There's some schools are set up with their own alternative school. They might be sent to that, or they might be sent to their night school, or half a day. Maybe we'll try half a day before we'll kick you completely out.
Well, Rob, how does the criminal justice system deal with this as opposed to the way that the schools deal with it?
Well, it's similar in that I think long ago as a culture, we opted towards the punishment end of the scale with people that have offended and enough to be involved in the legal system. And certainly I'm not saying that we shouldn't have punishment. The thing that concerns me is we're dealing with kids who have already shown a very high propensity to act out and to fight back when confronted. And as I said last week, I think they're best engaged through a love and compassionate and respectful stance. The more in your face, in their face you get, the more in your face they'll get. And I have some concerns about our prison system and our institutions that incarcerate, in that oftentimes the kids find more of the same. Well, disrespect and punishment and violence. To a degree.
There's it's relatively recent origin, the idea of a boot camp mentality for kids. From what I'm hearing, it sounds like that maybe the boot camp idea may have counterproductive results occasionally.
I think if a boot camp was run here again with respect, they could be quite effective. There's a growing body of research out there that suggests that kids that have experienced a lot of violence, and that doesn't mean directly observed it or had it perpetrated on them, actually have a change in brain structure in the hypothalamic area of the brain, and they become very much like what I call a deer in deer season. They can't tolerate a lot of stimulus that arouse fear in them without either running or striking back. And unfortunately, a drill sergeant that's in your face doesn't invite a kid to be not afraid.
Well,
if done respectfully, there might be a different story.
To what extent is there an attempt, Rob, in the criminal justice system in Oklahoma to, quote, rehabilitate, close quote, the incarcerated youthful offender?
Well, I think there's been an attempt. Most of our facilities now have counselors. There is a individual and group therapy as a part of the program. There's also usually school held inside the walls of juvenile facilities. So there's been quite an attempt. The real bind we run into with these kids that they are dangerous. They've committed violent acts and burglary and in some case murders, is how we balance that between coming down on the punitive or the punishment side versus inviting them to have hope and entertain the idea through compassionate interaction with them that they can be better people. That's a very, very difficult balance. So we've made the effort, but the recidivism rates in our juvenile prison system is somewhere between 75 and 85%. So if they've been in once, they come back. So that's not a great hit rate.
Lisa, changing the subject, but generally on the same subject, zero tolerance policies have come into vogue, at least in the press.
Right.
And I'm sure you deal with them on a daily basis. What's your general view about the wisdom of a zero tolerance policy and how well are they working?
I certainly understand why it was established. Primarily, I think, from fear. After 9/11, you know, fear really dominated a lot of things we did in this country, and certainly Columbine for the schools. No tolerance, but bottom line, when I say, you know, when a rule's more important than a kid, we're in trouble. And sometimes no tolerance is that.
Are zero tolerance policies in the schools principally limited to, for instance, weapons?
Drugs and weapons.
As opposed to perhaps fighting on school grounds or things like that?
Yes, usually drugs and weapons. But a weapon, what if it's a little pocket knife that you just simply accidentally left in your car that's never intended to be a weapon? You're gone. You're expelled.
Let me jump in here and get us to a short break. We're visiting with Dr. Robert Doan and Lesia Foerster-Doan. We're discussing the issue of working with troubled adolescents. You're watching The Verdict.
American Express Tax and Business Services. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. American Express Tax and Business Services. In Oklahoma City, the phone number is 405-843-5311.
I'd like to offer my most sincere congratulations to the firm of Crow & Dunlevy, the employees and attorneys. Profound contributions to the state of Oklahoma for this past century, and I wish you well for this coming century. Thank you.
Happy anniversary, Crow Dunlevy, and thank you for 100 years of providing quality legal service to the state of Oklahoma. We wish you much continued success and growth.
We are C.H. Guernsey & Company. We provide engineering, architecture, and consulting services to clients across the nation and around the world. Our corporate headquarters are located in Oklahoma City, and we have branch offices across the country, including Tulsa. We have provided quality service to clients for nearly 75 years. At Guernsey, we believe in quality work and unconditional client satisfaction. To learn more about C.H. Guernsey & Company, log on to our website at chguernsey.com.
Bringing out the best in each student. That is the simple goal and tradition of Heritage Hall. The focus on the individual shapes the educational experience at Heritage Hall. Each student benefits from small classes, able, dedicated teachers, a solid academic curriculum, and exceptional co-curricular programs of athletics, arts, community service, and other activities, parental involvement, personalized counseling, and the development of responsibility, integrity, and love of learning. If you want education taught with pride, then you want Heritage Hall.
Mick Cornett and Kent Myers back on The Verdict. We're talking to Lesia Foerster-Doan and Dr. Rob Doan about a variety of issues dealing with adolescence and behavior.
Lisa, I've heard the term alternative school. I'm not quite sure what it means. I have a feeling it means something akin to what we're talking about here. Can you tell our viewers what is meant by an alternative school, at least in central Oklahoma, and how they work and what they're designed to do?
Okay, again, every school district is going to have their own setup on how they choose to handle an alternative school. But primarily the idea of an alternative school is it's an alternative placement from the regular school. It doesn't take place during, you're not with the regular population of the school. You're set off, most often in a different facility, or maybe it's at a different time.
Because you've had problems.
Right, because you've crossed the line more than once, and you've now been taken out of regular school and placed into an alternative setting. And the alternative school is to try to rehabilitate before they end up going to the next level, which would be juvie or maybe dropping out of school.
Well, how successful are they are the schools in rehabilitating or bringing them back into the mainstream successfully?
My opinion, it depends on how the alternative school is run. A lot of the alternative schools, some of the alternative schools are set up for just punitive. Just go, get me out of the, let's get them out of my hair. Let's just get them.
To protect the other students.
Protect the other school, other students, protect maybe that student. And so they don't do, maybe counseling's not a part of it. The schools that have the counseling a part of it, smaller classrooms, teachers, the staff that work with the alternative kids understand some a little bit better. They're more trained with working with those difficult kids.
But that's a district by district decision?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, Rob, how are these issues best addressed? On an individual basis or a family basis?
Yes. Individual, family, and cultural. This is going to sound probably very trite, but it's something I believe very strongly. There's a huge difference between interacting with people from a fear base and interacting with people from a love base. And if we want to have better kids, better schools, better society, we need to become better people. And I really think that it's been said by many, many people down through the years, but love is the answer. And we need to be able to tolerate difference better. We need to accept difference in cultural and ethnic and religious backgrounds, I think, better than we are. The more that we can deal with people from a respect, love, and compassion base, the better chance we have with them, whether it's at the individual level, family level, or the cultural level.
Are kids that are involved in a church better off than kids that are not involved in a church?
If the church is an accepting, love-based, can celebrate difference, yes. If the church is very rigid and narrow and non-accepting and non-compassionate, probably not.
What has been your experience working with the young people at Union City or other places about the frequency with which they change their designation from youthful offender to adult offender? They just grow into lifetime criminals.
Unfortunately, they grow into lifetime criminals at a pretty alarming rate, and they go from being classified as a juvenile, then the next classification is youthful offender, which means if they have one more offense, they're tried as an adult, and they're what they call bridged over into the adult system. And as I say, with the recidivism rate being well over 70%, we know that a lot of these young men, once they're in the prison system, unfortunately, we're going to get to pay a lot of tax dollars over the course of their lifetime for them.
Let me stay with you on that point just a minute. Is Oklahoma kind of normal among the several states, or do we incarcerate more youthful offenders than other states? Are there alternative programs beyond alternative school and short of incarceration that are being used other places with success?
I really can't speak to that because I don't really know how we stack up in relation to other states, and so I wouldn't want to give false information.
What can we do in our system to make that 70-75% recidivism rate go down that we aren't doing now?
The main thing that the research indicates that is responsible for recidivism is release of the youth back into the same environment. That seems to be by far the largest variable. And that's just where money comes in. If we had really, really good programs after incarceration, placements where we could put these young men that give them access to a way to earn a good living, access to money, which is very important to males, and that was full of hope and respect, we would have addressed one of the largest issues. When we release them and they go back into the same environment, our chances are very, very slim.
Let me direct the same question on a little different focus to you, Lisa. A child leaves, hypothetically, your school to go to an alternative school, completes in a more or less successful way the alternative school, and comes back to your school. What has been your experience in how successful that child is upon return?
Well, the school that I worked at several years ago had their own on-campus alternative school. And I was one of the on-staff counselors. And that school actually, I think a very, very small percentage didn't make it. Most of the kids came back, fit right back into the system. Some of them chose to stay in the alternative school and graduate that way rather than come back to the regular school. They said it felt better. So again, I'm going to say it depends on how the school is run and you know, the staff they have with it. That was a great experience and one that worked.
Rob, we hear a lot about ADD and depression. How often are those two, among other problems, connected with adolescent misdeeds? Is it typical, or is that outside the norm?
Well, it's certainly a likely story.
Is the diagnosis often enough, done accurately and early enough?
Well, I'm just going to express opinion here. This isn't truth. I think that ADHD is the most often overly diagnosed category that we have. Not that there aren't some kids out there with those legitimate problems, but I think often kids that just act out get identified as ADHD when they don't fit all the requirements.
Now, ADHD means?
Hyperactive attention deficit, a kid that has a hard time staying in his or her seat and staying on task. I should have explained that, sorry. Now, what happens, though, when a kid gets identified that way, often they start getting treated different, not always in good ways, and then we see an escalation into more and more misbehavior. In other words, we don't keep it contained. It spreads. And here again, understanding, really knowing how to connect with adolescents. These alternative schools that work, they're staffed with people that really know how to engage adolescents.
We're going to have to wind it up there. Once again, I feel like we didn't get far enough into this subject, as I know Kent and I would have liked to, but I think you've enlightened us and a lot of our viewers, and we thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Certainly welcome. It's our pleasure.
Kent and I will be right back with a few final thoughts after this.
I enrich our cultural landscape.
I help define our quality of life.
I am one of 4,000 artists in central Oklahoma who receive
support from Allied Arts, this community's united arts organization.
I am an Allied artist.
Think being a big sister means you have to spend all day stuck in a library? Think again. To learn more about becoming a big brother or big sister, call 1-888-412-BIGS.
American Express Tax and Business Services. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. American Express Tax and Business Services. In Oklahoma City, the phone number is 405-843-5311.
We're wrapping up another edition of The Verdict, so I guess, Ken, everybody should hug their kids and hope for the best.
Yes, it's a shaky thing to raise an adolescent. It's a terrifying thing sometimes to be an adolescent. I barely remember that, but I am convinced that the problems, the fears, the concerns that adolescents have are every bit as serious, if not more so to them, than parents' problems and the problems of life after adolescence. And the better job we do with adolescents during that time period, the better citizens they're going to be and the better world we're going to have. I've got a coffee cup at home that says real dads hug their kids. So your comment I agree with, and try to do that every chance I get.
Well, something tells me our viewers also have some ideas and some concerns on this topic, and we'd love to hear from you. So go to our website, theverdict.tv. There's a place on you to send us a message, or maybe you have an idea for a future show. Thanks again also to our guests, Lesia Foerster-Doan and Dr. Rob Doan. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you next time on The Verdict.